Good evening, everyone. My name is Rajita, and I have Srimati and Ruchira helping us in evaluating this debate. So we are here to celebrate the kind of learning celebration, and we are here to witness another debate. And our speakers are all from the Panna class, and they will be coming up with their points to debate and counter-argue with the debates and so on. So we are here not to judge them, and we are here to evaluate them. So how we are going to proceed with this is I'm going to set the rules for the debate, and then we will introduce the speakers, both the proposing team and the opposing team, and then we'll start the debate after that. I have Ruchira just taking the time and counting the time, and you will hear the first bell, 30 seconds to go, and then you will hear 2 bells when the time is up.
Okay, thank you, Rajita. I think you all are ready now, so I will not take much time. The affirmative team will go with traditions should be included in Buddhism. The negative team will go by traditions should not be included in Buddhism. They should be kept separately, okay? So the affirmative or the proposing team is Tevin, Tarindu, Chamati, Sumika, Anishka and Kavisha, okay? And the opposing team, Ishara, Setumi, Isindu, Shayan, Dinu, and Devon. Good luck, guys.
Okay, so the floor is open for the proposing team. The team captain, Tevin Gajavira.
Good afternoon, Venerable Thero, parents, teachers, and my dear friends. The resolution that stands before the House today is that traditions should be included in religion. In all religions, not just for Buddhism, traditions are a necessity for us to learn and develop our confidence. A tradition is defined as an inherited, established, or customary pattern of thought, action, or behavior. Meaning, a tradition can be anything that is practiced and passed on from generation to generation. It is silly to even think that any religion can function without the traditions that have been passed down. Through the traditions that we follow as Buddhists, we can easily say that without them, there would be no direction at which for us to follow. Just imagine if we didn't follow some of the small things we don't even realize our traditions. For example, going to Sunday school. My parents went to Sunday school, I go to Sunday school, and many of you parents have gone to Sunday school. This is clearly a tradition. And even on top of that, we always start temple off with the Buddha Puja, no matter if it's a meditation session or a Dhamma talk. You see, we do these small things as traditions to maintain order and courtesy within our religion. As side government, I'd like to highlight some of the fundamental traditions we believe are most important for us to keep our confidence in Buddhism. Wearing white to the temple, going to temple on New Year's, keeping our hands together while chanting. And lastly, the 2 points that I will be further emphasizing on are going to temple as a child and offering a dana to the monks after the passing away of your parents. When I think back to the days of when I was about 1.5 to 7 years old, going to temple every Sunday, I honestly can't remember much. But that is indeed my point, because if my parents had never made it a tradition for me to attend Dhamma school every Sunday, even though I had no understanding of what Buddhism was, I wouldn't be here today as a practicing Buddhist. Because over time, I was able to deepen and develop my faith and confidence. And so, on to my next point, offering a dana for your parents after they pass away. This is a very common tradition that is seen in Buddhism, and many of you have probably already done this before too. We don't do this because we have to. We do this because we want to. We believe it's a way for us to pay homage for all the things our parents have done for us. Not only do we gain merits from this, but we also pass on merits to those who have passed away, our parents and other past relatives, to help them prosper in their future lives. And so, in conclusion, I have just one question for the side opposition, and it is, why should any of the two traditions that I've just mentioned be separated from Buddhism? Thank you.
Good evening, Swami Manse, judges, government, and audience. The resolution before this House today is that religion and tradition should stay together. We, the opposition, believe that this statement is false. We agree with the definition given by the affirmative team. The first speaker of the affirmative team has tried to tell you that Sunday school is a tradition. We didn't define how long a tradition needs to be called a tradition. The tradition of Sunday school was brought upon 100 years before, and that was by an American by the name of Henry Olcott, not even by a Sinhalese person. The leader of the affirmative team also tried to tell you that going to temple is a tradition and going there is good. One of my members will be talking about blind faith. Now, this concludes my rebuttal, and now I'd like to address two of my own points. My first point is that when tradition gets mixed with religion, it helps to attract and trap people. Because of traditions, Buddhism is perceived in many different ways. These ways fuel wrong views, and in turn can cause negative emotions to arise. Buddhism is a way of life, according to the Noble Eightfold Path. The path's aim is to get rid of lobha, dosha, and moha. One doesn't need to have traditions in order to follow the path. When traditions were introduced to Buddhism, people began to get confused. They thought, and still think, that traditions are Buddhism. True Buddhism doesn't need influence from any tradition. Lord Buddha once said, Buddhists will destroy Buddhism in the future by adding and mixing things into it. This shows that when we mix things like tradition into religion, will only damage its true meaning. Lord Buddha went against tradition in his time by preaching Dhamma to everyone. It didn't matter what gender or how old someone was for him to teach the way of life. My second point is how traditions in Buddhism have shaped the world in a negative way. Traditional Buddhism was very hidden in Asia for many centuries. This was due to the fact that tradition was a barrier for the Western world to approach Buddhism. In 1893 World Parliament, the Buddhist masters favorable presented their practice to modern America only as a practical philosophy, and not as a religion with traditions. This act helped the Western world to learn Buddhism, and because of that, nearly 500 million people practice Buddhism to this date. As mentioned above in my first point, traditions can fuel negative feelings. Because of the ignorance and hatred arising from the introduction of tradition, people began to fight in religious wars to protect Buddhism. This is only an example of how traditions can fuel lobha, dosha, and moha, the very things that, as Buddhists, we strive to get rid of. This concludes my points. Thank you, judges.
The resolution before the House today is that tradition and religion should stay together, and we, the Honorable Government, believe this to be true. Firstly, I would like to say, just because one tradition is bad does not make all traditions bad. Traditions have helped preserve Buddhism for over 2,500 years. And as well as that, yes, many Western people do know Buddhism today, but that's because our traditions have helped preserve Buddhism. And not just that, many Western monks, such as Bhikkhu Bodhi, went to Sri Lanka because our traditions and our society helped them in their spiritual paths. Now on to my points. Now before Buddhism, Sri Lanka was undeveloped. We worshipped spirits and gave sacrificial offerings. The advent of Buddhism propelled the advancement of Sri Lanka. Firstly, we became agrarian and developed a self-sustained economy. This led to stability and security in Sri Lanka, and this was what fostered strong Sri Lankan cultures and traditions. This environment is also what preserved Buddhism for over 2,500 years. Even India, where the Buddha was born and the Dhamma was preached, Buddhism has declined since there was no strong tradition to support the religion. Secondly, unlike our neighboring countries, India and Pakistan, Sri Lankans traditionally value women's roles as crucial for societal success. One example is that most of our New Year traditions center around the mother. The Buddha showed us that women are as capable as men in any area. For example, the Buddha had chief male and female disciples who contributed equally regardless of gender. We must also not forget that Sri Lanka had the world's first female Prime Minister, Mrs. Bandaranaike. A third key aspect of Sri Lankan identity is the smiling face and Ayubowan, which means I wish you a long life. Sri Lanka is a developing country where many people struggle to meet ends day to day, but the smiling face is seen everywhere. Our traditional greeting highlights the equanimity, accepting the good and the bad with calmness and loving kindness, which is a core practice in Buddhism. In conclusion, religion and tradition have fused together to simultaneously shape our identity to what it is today. My question for the side opposition is, why should we tear apart our identity? And it is for these reasons that the resolution must and will stand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, judges. Swamin Mohansa. Today, the resolution before this House today is that religion and traditions should stay together. Today, I will be doing two things for you. I'll repeat the side government's points and build up my own case. So, the side government has mentioned offering dana to the monks is a tradition. Yes, we follow this tradition as well. But if people follow this tradition blindly without knowing what the true meaning behind this tradition, it's not. We offer dana to monks because of like the show of respect. If people offer danas without knowing what the meaning of offering it, then what's the use of having that tradition? So now we'll be moving on to my own case. My first point is how time can affect traditions. In ancient times, we didn't have advanced technology. Celebrations like Vesak were celebrated in a simple way. Compared to the present, much has changed in the way of celebrating Vesak from the past. Let me give you an example. When I was in Sri Lanka, I would see people going out on the roads at night to dancehall on Vesak. If you date back to 2,000 years ago, did we have electricity or cars? No, we didn't. In the past, on Vesak, people's first priority was Buddhism. But now traditions have become the first priority, and Buddhism has become secondary, and this leads me to my next point. Traditions were made over time by people from generation to generation. Because of these traditions being made by people, it takes away the true idea of what Buddhism is all about. For example, let's take a look at the divisions of Buddhism. Before Lord Buddha passed away, there weren't any divisions of Buddhism. Because of the traditions that people believe in, there are many divisions of Buddhism, such as Zen Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, and etc. Despite having these divisions, the goal of these separate divisions is the same, is to reach Nibbana. If you want to reach Nibbana, you don't need traditions. People's mind is clouded by the idea of traditions, and they are seeing what a tradition and religion is, and what impact those traditions have on Buddhism. So, in summary, I have told you that how time can affect traditions, and I have also told you that traditions can cause us to lose the true idea of Buddhism and what impact it has on Buddhism. So, for the reasons that I have stated, this is why this resolution must and will fall. Thank you.
The resolution before the House today is that traditions should be kept in religion. Traditions that should be kept in religion are respecting the Buddha statue, elders, and the dead. Before I get to my points, I will refute the opposition's points. As one of my members already said, we offer dana to our parents, so we do after their deaths, so we do know the meaning, and we don't do it blindly. We know the meaning, we do it for them. When we're younger, we don't know the meaning of offering merits, but as we get older, we learn the importance. As the opposition said, you don't need traditions, like they're not that important. But unless you're given the truth, we need to follow traditions. Even the Buddha followed traditions to attain enlightenment. So now I will get to my points. First, I will discuss the origin and importance of these traditions. We got these traditions from our parents, but when we were young, we were practicing without knowledge. When we go to Dhamma school and perform these traditions, we gain a better knowledge about Dhamma and evolve into respectful and wise Buddhists. The first tradition I will be talking about is respecting the Buddha statue. We respect the Buddha statue because the Buddha was the only one that taught us to realize the Four Noble Truths and to stop birth. Buddha taught us to understand suffering, the cause of suffering, and the realization of suffering. When we worship the Buddha statue, we think about what the Buddha has taught us and live our lives based on his teachings. Another tradition we do is respecting elders. We respect elders because they are more wise, mature, and experienced than us. We can gain knowledge from them by respecting their morals and values. By observing and listening to our elders, we expand our range of knowledge, including Dhamma, and improve our good qualities. When we respect elders, we get blessings from them and gain life experiences to carry through our lives. The last tradition I will be talking about is respecting the dead. We respect the dead because if they are in a place where they need merits, when we offer merits, they can share it. By doing this, we acquire merits as well. We also do this to remember the life they lived and their achievements in life. Being respectful is a very big part of being a Buddhist. We learn to listen to others and appreciate elders. Through these traditions, we are not only able to become respectful and show gratitude to those who are wiser than us, but also let go of our ego and pride and become better people in our society. This is why this resolution must and will stand. Thank you.
Thank you. When looking at the points brought up by the other side, my very first instinct was to realize that in all of them, the condition was that you understood why you were doing that tradition. And that is a fundamental flaw in the idea that when you're younger, a long time, you're not really told why you're doing certain things. You're either told that you're too young or that or the person in charge of telling you decides that you wouldn't understand it yet. Now, getting on to my points. Buddhism is a very minimalistic religion in the aspect that it isn't made for showmanship. It has a specific purpose and it should be treated as such. Traditions can dilute this by contributing to aspects of appeal and not substance. Traditions only came into existence after the Buddha's death. They aren't actually part of his original teachings. Traditions are often separate and very surface level, eye candy if you will. It's used to attract people and doesn't enhance the learning and good qualities Buddhism is known for. When looking at aspects such as worshipping statues and other symbols, the question must be asked, is this a true result of respect or simply because of religion? Simply because, as a child, you were told to bow to these symbols. For example, I distinctly remember being told to worship the Buddha statue upon entering the temple. For a long time, I didn't know this was because we had to respect the Buddha for all he has done for us. And it is widely accepted in Buddhism that confidence and understanding is encouraged over faith. Tradition, more often than not, are fueled by something intrinsic you cannot often see. This is very apparent in younger children. It's obedient and blind. Blind faith doesn't really have a place in Buddhism. Although it can be argued that faith can help kickstart confidence, fostering confidence and understanding from a young age will lead you light years ahead of what faith and traditions can bring. And time is always of the essence. Thank you.
Thank you, judges. Before I elaborate upon my points, I would like to take a moment to refute some of the points made by the opposition. At first, in refute to Isindu's point, at first we don't know, but as we learn, we learn as we get older. That is the point. We follow traditions when we are young, and as we learn the meaning as we become older. The resolution which we are affirming is that religion and traditions should stay together. One of the points which I am arguing for is going to the temple on New Year's Day. This has been a time-old tradition which brings us together as a community and helps to consolidate the Buddhist principles. This tradition is not only exclusive to Buddhism. Many other religious groups gather in their place of worship to receive blessings for the new year. Throughout the day, we partake in many traditional activities that allow us to enhance our understanding and experiences in Buddhism, along with receiving blessings which help us begin the new year with a positive attitude. My second point is in regards to bowing. Bowing is a universal custom in numerous religions, including Buddhism. Other cultures and religions have different interpretations as to the meaning of bowing. Us as Buddhists bow in respect and representation of dropping away our ego and belongings which we cling to. We bow in numerous ways. Some ways include standing, bending at the waist, bowing on the floor, and many others, all as signs of respect. Traditions like going to the temple on New Year's Day and how we bow allows us to incorporate Buddhist principles into our daily lives, and it is important that we maintain these traditions to pass on to our future generations that help preserve Buddhism. Thank you.
Thank you, judges and Venerable Monk. Today, I will be doing two things for you today. I will be refuting one of SideGov's points, and I will be presenting a case on gender equality and animal cruelty. Firstly, I'll be addressing the issue of gender equality. Overall, in the Sri Lankan Buddhist society, it is not achieved like the Western cultures. Women are constantly being criticized when it comes to certain practices. In 288 BC, the first sacred Bodhi tree was brought to Sri Lanka by no other than a female monk, Sangamita Mahatero. Why is it that females are not allowed to get close to the Jayasiri Maha Bodhi tree, though the tree itself was brought to Sri Lanka by a female? Furthermore, in 4th century AD, Princess Hemamala brought the Buddha's tooth to Sri Lanka hidden in her hair. Why are females not allowed to go to the Patiripur where the sacred tooth is kept? Two very sacred pieces of Buddhism were brought to Sri Lanka by females. I think we can all agree that these two sacred relics helped strengthen Buddhism and unite Buddhists in Sri Lanka. These are two of the many examples that have cause women to feel afraid and insecure when it comes to getting the full experience of being a Buddhist. However, this was not always the case. The Buddha was known for being a religious leader who viewed and treated both sexes equally. The second point I'd like to talk about is animal cruelty. I want to address how the annual festival to honor the sacred tooth relic, also known as the Dalada Perahera, is a tradition that keeps elephants confined, jailed if you will. The elephants are not allowed to roam like free animals. Instead, they are locked and chained to the ground. They're treated like slaves, forced to do what we want, and if they do not obey, we are standing right next to them with a spear, ready to torture an animal that should be free in the jungle. Keep in mind that this was not something the Buddha told us to do for him. It is a tradition that we created ignorantly. The Buddha never told his followers that his relic should be carried on the back of an innocent animal. Take to note that this is a tradition that also contradicts one of the 5 precepts, refraining from harming living things. By attending and supporting this tradition, we're not only breaking a precept, but we are also cultivating bad karma. These are a couple of the many issues that I hope have convinced you that traditions have only caused ill in today's society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, I'd like to start with some refutations first. We never stated that all traditions are good, and we never stated that we should follow all traditions. Now, the resolution before the House today is that religion and tradition should stay together. As you have heard from my fellow members on side government, tradition within Buddhism is a very key factor to help maintain and deepen our faith. This is why it cannot just be brushed off of the whole topic of religion. Now I will get on to my debate. A very common tradition that most of us follow is wearing white. As you can see, some of us in the crowd are wearing white, and even side opposition is wearing white. Now, my next point is why we don't wear shoes to Pansal. A monk told me that just like we don't walk into our houses with our dirty shoes on, we don't enter the temple with our dirty shoes on. Again, the Buddha never told us to remove our shoes. We just did it out of respect and because our parents told us to do it from a young age, meaning that it has been passed down from generation to generation, making it a tradition. My last point will be talking about why we don't wear shorts to temple. Again, this is something that we've done out of respect, as the Buddha never told us that we couldn't wear shorts to temple. We as believers thought that we should cover our knees and our ankles out of respect when going to Pansal. This is also something that we have done because our parents told us to do it, making it a tradition. In conclusion, traditions can be used as a way to show respect in our religion, and this is why the resolution must and will stand.
Thank you, judges and Venerable Monk. I will start my argument by refuting one of the affirmative side's points, then I will introduce two of my own points. Traditions create inequality within our communities, and they can hinder our practice in Dhamma. So the affirmative side has said traditions are essential to preserve religion. But during the British colonization of Sri Lanka, monks had to disrobe and abandon tradition to avoid persecution by the British government. As well, traditions do not preserve teachings of the Dhamma, but they preserve interpretations of them. Buddhism is passed down through the written teachings of the Buddha. So, my first point is that traditions can introduce inequality into Buddhist society. In Buddhism, it is taught that we should not make judgment of other objects, places, or people. If we truly follow the Buddhist teachings, we need to be impartial. We learn about the 5 aggregates so we can learn how to be aware of our feelings and judgments and eventually be able to control them. Some traditions impede our progress in accomplishing impartiality and equality. For example, with traditions such as giving offerings to temples, sometimes people will give unnecessarily large or extravagant offerings. And although this is generous, it can make some people feel intimidated or insecure if they cannot provide the same sort of offerings. This can cause further divide between lower class and upper class people in Buddhist community. My second point is that traditions initially established with good intentions can change over time and become hindrances in practicing Buddhism. Tradition of teaching Dhamma in schools was first introduced to teach Buddhist children Dhamma, but has become twisted over the years in Sri Lanka. Now children are forced to learn Buddhism and are put under the same pressure and competitiveness of the Sri Lankan school system to learn Dhamma. This does not teach children Buddhism in the right way, as it is a religion which teaches one to be calm and relaxed, which cannot be achieved under the pressure of the competitive school system in Sri Lanka. The fact that traditions can negatively affect someone's ability to learn and practice Dhamma shows us that traditions should be kept separate from the religion of Buddhism.
So we have come to the last 2 speakers. So you will get 2 more minutes to discuss about the points and counter arguments. Okay, you get 3 minutes.
Thank you, Rajit Uncle and Venerable Hamdru. Today, the resolution before this house today is that Buddhism and traditions should be together. I'll be doing 3 very important things for you, which are refuting all of Side Gov's points, introducing one of my own points, and concluding to what our side has said today. So Side Gov has said that going to Sunday school is a tradition, and we all believe that is a good thing. Respectively, Sunday school vacate attraction events and become very competitive, which cultivates lobha, dosa, and moha. Side Gov has also said that traditions are a necessity to learn. But respectively, traditions can also teach the wrong things, such as lobha, dosa, and moha. Now I'll be going to my constructive argument, which is traditions aren't pragmatic. Before going on to my constructive argument, I'll be defining 2 key words, which are tradition and religion. Tradition, belief or behavior passed down within a group. Religion, the belief in a worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. Now let me address the pain that this side is trying to solve today. As side off, we are trying to solve that religions and Buddhism and traditions don't have to be collective. Why do I state that traditions aren't pragmatic? Over the years, we have seen Buddhist traditions to drastically change, yet we still follow Buddhism and preach Buddhism the exact same way. So this means that the philosophy we follow has no evident reliance with traditions. So then why do we still follow traditions? That is the question I should be asking all of you today. There will be many dull reasons for why we still follow traditions, although the overarching idea is that traditions aren't pragmatic. To make this clear for you all today, I'll be restating an example. A female lay follower in our society has the need to attend the temple to enlighten her understanding of Buddhism. Although, according to our tradition, she isn't allowed to go by herself. This implements a major problem on her, because now her path to understanding Buddhism has been obscured by traditions. This tradition has prevented her from experiencing Buddhism to its fullest. If traditions prevent us from enhancing the actual religion we as lay followers are trying to follow, I personally see traditions as being obsolete in our relevant society. To sum up what I've said today, I'll be restating a famous quote. If we follow traditions, there will be no religion. Now I'll be summarizing and restating what this side has said today. So this side has said that traditions contribute to non-essential aspects of Buddhism, how Buddhism was established without cultural tradition, gender inequality and animal cruelty, traditions aren't pragmatic, and effects of time on traditions, and lastly, traditions consume worthful time. In conclusion, Buddhism, a philosophy based off religious aspects, really expresses the prepossessing idea of this debate, whether it to be animal cruelty, contribution of non-essential aspects, and/or time. This debate really boils down to the fact that although traditions very utile, aren't very feasible for the 21st century we live in. The transcending beauty of the philosophy we all follow is the condition of treating all living beings equally. And our side has expressed this statement convincingly, and it is for these reasons that I have stated, speaking on my side's behalf, that this resolution must and certainly will fall.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It is quite evident that the opposition hasn't provided nearly enough evidence that the traditions we have presented here today should be excluded from religion. We, the government, say that traditions set out a path and gives us direction, deepens our faith in Buddhism, and brings meaning and value to what our religion, Buddhism, is today. Traditions that we follow bring order and courtesy. Because of this, Buddhism has prospered throughout time as these traditions were passed down from generation to generation. Who would have thought that a religion that started roughly 2,500 years ago would still be alive today? And why, you would ask? Because of the traditions that was passed down, of course. Now to explain some of the points made by the opposition. They explained multiple times that we were too young to understand how you will learn as you grow older. Well, for example, math, you don't go straight to long division. You start off at adding and subtracting. The side opposition has consistently been bringing up traditions, making it seem that we agree with all the traditions that they have said. All we are saying is that tradition should be included in religion. Like, why is it necessary for us to stop wearing white to the temple? Should we wear black and represent darkness? Should we not have a dane for our parents after they pass away? Does the opposition respect their parents enough to put a dane for them? The opposition tried to say that Sunday school is bad. This is possibly one of the dumbest things I've heard today. Are you telling us that we got Sunday school to learn moha, desa, and loba? No, we did it to learn good things in life and meritorious people in society, as many of you here are today. We never said anything about how we agree on the tradition of animal cruelty either. What this debate boils down to is, should traditions be included in religion? And we as the government say that it should be. So I would like to say thank you everyone for coming to this new tradition that we have started. Have a good night.
Okay, so with that we conclude the debate. So I think the audience may be just waiting until we announce the winners. But unfortunately, I told you we are not the judges. We are just here to evaluate. So what we would do is our evaluation sheets will be provided to the principal, and she will be able to share that with the teams. But if I wear my hat called the judge's hat, and I would say that we have both teams being the winners. Okay, so thank you very much, guys. It's a great pleasure to just being a judge in this case and being able to evaluate your debating skills. Okay, thank you very much.